Yes, it's Mr. Nailsin's Wednesday Comics, and decided to take a dip back into Moon Knight. I've always had a soft spot for Moon Knight, even though, yeah, he was a Batman knockoff for the most part. And slowly but surely, they developed his own personal gimmick, which is his multiple disorder. Multiple personality disorder, now known as dissociative identity disorder, which can be a mix of things, actually, more than just personalities. But so now you got to say everyone's got DID when their mood swings. But you know, it kind of reminds me when impotence became ED. Anyway, that's another story. So Moon Knight, that's the deal. And of course, it's way more, of course, it's a superhero world, supernatural things happen, but, you know, the way that he converses with his other personalities is just, I don't think it goes quite that way. But for the purposes of a narrative and story, that's the deal. Originally, it was just he had multiple aliases rather than just one. And sort of kind of Batman did too. He would disguise himself as this criminal who listened to, kind of like Jake Lockley is in the Moon Knight story, to listen in on what the word is on the street and stuff like that. But eventually this became, they weren't just people he made up. These were personalities that dwells within his mind, and so on and so forth. Wasn't even sure if there was, and his original origin was not of a mystical one. He was just this mercenary hired to hunt a werewolf. Well, there's still a whole lot of supernatural going on with Moon Knight. He's not hunting werewolves. He's busy dealing with vampires in this current story arc that I had heard some good things about, saying, hey, Moon Knight might be one to look at for comics. And as far as wokeness, there isn't any. So there's that, but and I realize in this day and age that goes a long way. But you need to do a little better. So, and to be fair, I'm jumping in. This would be issue 14, 15, 16, 17. So that's, the 4 issues that I read and bought up because it says, hey, 14 is a jumping on point, because they had just concluded a story arc where Moon Knight and his allies took on the villain Zodiac. And that came to an end. And so they move into this new arc where he's dealing with this vampire mafia. So that's what he's confronting and all of that. However, to get there, you got to go through these 2 issues, which is all him talking to his personalities and dealing with his feelings. So to be fair, it's like, oh, maybe it would have flowed better if I had been reading it all along, and it wouldn't have been, but it's just 2 whole issues to that. And I've been in and out of Moon Knight when Warren Ellis took it over and shook it up a bit. It was interesting, and they followed that version of it. And it's still kind of that way now, when they introduced Mr. Knight and all that type of stuff. But it quickly got old. I mean, it was a lot of surrealism and whatnot, to the point that you weren't sure that anything you were reading had happened to the character at all. It got old, and it needed to move on into something. But dealing with this constant, oh, look, he's got these other personalities. I know. It just drags on. The 14 and 15 are filler stories. That's it. There's these assassins hired by this vampire mafia. Well, you see one of them here. One of them is named after a mythical lion character. He doesn't actually turn into a lion, so I'm not sure. Maybe the artist wasn't told. But the girl here, assassin, that's what she looks like, in the comic. I don't know. But that's about it. Most of it is his therapy. Even into this one, his buddy, there are now 2 fists of Khonshu, and that's something I knew from a previous issue. I'd checked in and immediately checked back out. Wasn't all that wowed by it, but they've introduced Hunter's Moon is his name. And so, well, you have two fists, so why can't Khonshu? So he has two fists of Khonshu, Moon Knight and Hunter's Moon. And he gets attacked and seemingly killed by these assassins that are there to take Moon Knight out. But don't worry, in the end, they reveal you can't kill the fist of Khonshu, so he's back from the dead. And I mean, even if they had made a deal about it in a couple of issues, they all thought he was dead, he'd be back, because that's the way it is in comic books, So he sets up this trap, and the idea is to put fear in the hearts of these brutal assassins. And he drops one of them in a hole with a bunch of bones and stuff, and that scares her. And then drops some columns and stuff on the lion guy. So then he becomes Cowardly Lion, and they're begging him for forgiveness, and they'll tell him whatever he wants to know. I don't think so. And everything's all blacked out and stuff, and you can't quite. But that's essentially what he did. He led them into a trap, and they fell for it. But I don't think it delivers, and that's the culmination of it. Then eventually it ends with him confronting the leader of this particular vampire group, who's wanting to expand his operations and all this sort of stuff. And it ends on a bit of for the next issue, I guess there'll be an all-out battle. So you got to get to the 5th issue, I guess, for the big fight. And to inform him that Hunter's Moon was not dead, because Hunter Moon was right there. Yeah, I'm not dead, stupid. So, and then Tigra is also a part of his. He's got a group he formed called Midnight Mission, and that's what he's up to. So, and he's got 2 guys who were turned vampires on his team and all of that, which is why he's a bit pissed at the vampires and what have you. And they're developing this whole thing of vampires controlling their territory and whatnot. Okay, but there just wasn't a whole lot here. I'm not really seeing what the big deal is, other than there's no wokeness in it. Yeah, okay. That's nice, but I'm not really seeing a whole lot here. And just the conversation about his relationship with himself, or his selves, rather. How many times do you have to have that conversation, I can understand it. You could wrap that up in a few panels. It just seems to me there's not a whole lot here, so you got to drag it out, and that's the purpose of filler. And I'm afraid that's what I'm seeing here. Again, maybe it flows better with the previous story all together, but this was presented as a jumping on point. I jumped on, and I'm like, So, and the art's okay. It's kind of weak in some parts of it. This cover here is the main artist, so that's kind of what it looks like. But that's a cool shot of Moon Knight there. So he kind of nails it here and there. But it's all right. But the story overall is not winning me over. So this is another one. The Flash, I wasn't that wowed by. The Batman, I'm looking at it again, and I guess I'll go ahead and get the next issue for this one to see how it's going. But I'm not optimistic. So, well, that's Moon Knight. And that's too bad, because I do actually like Moon Knight, but didn't like the TV show. No, didn't. Even though had a pretty good guy who could have done it, I think, to play the role, but they didn't let him. So, anyway, maybe it'll get better. We'll see.